All right, I'm gonna go ahead and set the clock here for 5 minutes because I'm only gonna talk about this movie for 5 minutes on this review, starting now. Okay, so basically, Tenet stars Robert Pattinson, John David Washington, Kenneth Branagh as the bad guy, and John David Washington is the protagonist who starts off with the CIA. And he's not a very likable character. None of the characters in this movie are very likable. Basically, what I feel the whole film is it is one of those things where Christopher Nolan basically got $200 million, threw it on the ground, rolled around in it, played with himself a little bit, and then lit it all on fire and burned all of his studio's money. Kevin Smith made a comment recently on something where he said Christopher Nolan is one of the few people out there that big studios are giving a lot of money to make independent features. I feel this movie's probably going to put a dagger in that for a little while because Christopher Nolan, this film is one of the most pretentious, self-centered, absolute ego stroke pieces of shit films that I've seen in a long time. I went into the film really wanting to like it. I liked some of his earlier works, Memento, Batman Begins. It's probably my favorite film of his because it gives him a budget to actually work with. While Memento is the best medium or highbrow film he's made, and probably the best statement he was ever able to make as a filmmaker, while Batman Begins is just kind of a pretty decent film, starts a new series, and The Dark Knight's alright, but really just the Joker in it. Dark Knight Rises is shit. Haven't seen Dunkirk and Interstellar, so I may be able to change my mind on that, but pretty much this film is just Inception with a time travel plot. It's not time travel, but yes it is, because multiple times Robert Pattinson's character shows that he is from the future. He knows what kind of drink John David likes. When they first meet, or when he's trying to hire him to jump into this hotel in India with a lady who you find out at the end of the film is actually working for John David. And see, that's the biggest spoiler is in it is it's all based upon him going through life, setting up this, and then trying to stop it. And it's he's setting it up where there's multiple realities going on. Basically, it's not time travel. It's not time travel until you find out it is time travel, and you don't actually know where in the future Robert Pattinson is from. Is he from a couple days in the future? And one of the last lines he says is that he tells John David, he's like, you'll meet me in your future in my past. And you recruited me not when you think you did. So it's kind of playing with it. Where does he do it? And it kind of makes his little sacrifice at the end where you think, well, is he actually going to die? Because there's that one person that reverted back and ended up taking a bullet, or had taken a bullet, and then opens the door, lets him go in and keep the algorithm, which is basically like this big ass looking like a camshaft on an engine kind of thing that's multiple pieces put together. That's basically the code to control and revert space-time from moving in this direction to moving in back and forth. And there's the little joke, inside joke of like the grandfather paradox. And you can tell it's Christopher Nolan kind of strumming his thumb at you in terms of the film, and how he's definitely feels he's smarter than you in terms of making this, and you'll never catch on, you'll never figure it out. And I think it's very apparent, and it does wear on throughout the film because there's nothing in it outside of the really good visuals, and he's a master of setting things together and creating a great moving image for you to watch, but there's no story there, there's no substance to it. The characters aren't likable, and other than Robert Pattinson being, but you don't get enough of him. You don't never find out anything about him. And that's part of the reason, and I think it kind of maybe sets it up for a possibility of a sequel to it. And in having that sequel, what would happen is they go back and then change or stop Robert Pattinson from having to die. And they make several comments to it of like, Robert Pattinson's like, well, what happens, happens. And then John David is like, well, what do you mean? Maybe we can change that. And what happens is at the end, you find out that what it was is a future version of John David had went back in the past, set all this into motion, and led to the final outcome or the conclusion where we're at. But the thing is, he never gives you a definitive answer of which path is true and which is not, and he just blends it all together. Like this final action scene at the very end where they're like, oh, well, we're going to have a temporal pincer where we have basically a reverse timeline and a forward timeline coming together. That way we can see multiple outcomes and figure out exactly how to get there. But that shows their whole hand that it's really an indeterminate amount in the future that they're able to come back from, and it opens the possibilities of additional movies carrying out this like time cop kind of setup where they're coming back and trying to save the world, and kind of a rip off on Terminator, because the Kyle Reese character is Robert Pattinson in this film. He comes back, he changes the future because also at the very beginning, he saves him in probably the most obviously telegraphed, like somebody seeing something. I mean, the camera goes like this and looks down at it. So you know that little thing hanging on the back that's important. And then you can pretty much tell it's Robert Pattinson based on some of the things he said. That's 5 minutes, so I'm going to go ahead and end it here. And really what it is it just burns me the fuck up because it was one of those films I really wanted to like that was just a rehash of the same stuff from Inception of creating multiple layers to the story and not really giving you an idea or truth of which one was real and which one wasn't. And I mean, it's intentional. That's what Christopher Nolan does. He likes people to talk about his films. You can clearly see that, and that's what he's trying to do. But I think at this point, he overplayed his hand. He didn't have a full house with ladies doing the paddling. He's sitting there with a pocket deuces and shit else on the table, and he just lost the hand. I think this film's not going to make its money back, and I think it's really going to hurt filmmakers to get good budgets to make original films. Christopher Nolan just Scrooge McDucked his way to probably hurting his career in a little bit in some capacity, but definitely hurting people who don't have his clout to be able to get the budgets they need to make something that's truly amazing and actually could be a masterpiece other than this shit. Other than that, hopefully I wasn't too offensive. Thank you. Feel free to like, subscribe, share, and have a good day.